in 1990, scientists realized that thoughts are not the things that are driving us. If you want different results, you've got to go all the way back to the root cause, which is the emotional pattern that you have developed, that we each develop since we're little kids. The thing about mindfulness is it sounds great, but mindfulness just makes you aware of the pattern or aware of a symptom or aware of an emotion. It doesn't dissolve the pattern. They've got emotional patterns that are embedded in their nervous system that are capping their performance. And once we release those, then their performance just really takes off.
This is the Relentless Pursuit of Winning podcast, where we are here to educate, equip, and inspire people to build extraordinary companies. We're so glad you're here. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so that you can get updates every time we drop a new episode. Now let's get it started. Hey folks, welcome to another episode of the Relentless Pursuit of Winning podcast. My name is Rick Meekins. I'm going to be your host today, and in the studio we have Rochelle Carrington. How are you today, man?
Doing very well. How are you?
I'm nice. I'm nice. I'm thinking about it's like middle of November. It's like 71 degrees. I've got no issues. How you doing?
Definitely one where you are. Not 40s, a good day is 50 here.
Ah, man, bless your heart, man. I was thinking like September, like walking to school up in Jersey, and it's just like the leaves are already on the ground and it's cold and you got to have your coat and stuff like that. Forget
Yes.
about it. Done with
Okay.
that.
Smarter than me, obviously.
I was told today that I was too nice and I got kicked out of the North. So, I don't
Oh,
know.
yeah, I came from the Southwest and came here, so I must have been not nice enough there, and I got
I guess I set myself up for that one. Anywho, let's get into it. Rochelle, do us a favor. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. So my company is Emotional Blueprinting, and we work with executives, CEOs, business owners who have successful businesses. On the outside, everything's looking good. They've got the drive, vision, they know what to do, they've got the strategy, but internally they feel stuck. They feel a little stuck in second gear. They start to lose a little motivation. They feel
Hmm.
high stress. They get frustrated easily. They might not be sleeping very well. And they're not used to those sorts of things because they tend to be very ambitious, successful people.
Yeah.
And so they come to us because they're trying to figure out what is going on. And the issue is not lack of ambition or lack of, knowing what to do. The issue is that they've got emotional patterns that are embedded in their nervous system that are capping their performance. And once we release those, then their performance just really takes off. So that's what we do
Oh.
with people.
Oh wow, that's different. I have a lot of conversations. I have conversations about working with entrepreneurs and the whole mindset piece, and it's just like, okay, you've got limiting beliefs and all that good stuff, but that's not what you said. You went a different direction about that. So you have to tell us a little bit more. This is going to be a different and a great topic for us, I think.
Yes. So the interesting thing is that, mindset is a great thing to focus on. However, what mindset does is it tries to or it attempts to rewire thoughts. The problem with that, and the reason why people are finding now in 2025, 2026, that it's not exactly fixing the issue is because back in 1990, neuroscientists realized that thoughts are not the things that are driving us, that our emotions happen before a thought. So our emotions happen about 350 milliseconds before a thought comes into your head to make sense of that emotion. And then after that, you take an action and then you get results. And so, what people have typically been doing for the past 20, 30 years is focusing on mindset, which is focusing on the thought, on the logic. The problem is, it's not the logic that's driving the issue, it's the emotion that is the issue. And so, that's why we go to the root cause, which is the emotions that are sitting in the nervous system of your body.
So if I understand you correctly, something happens, some stimuli, whatever happens, we have an emotional response, and then we have a thought. Is
Yes.
that kind of what you're saying, or
Yeah.
exactly what you're saying, or
Exactly. So, you know, what we've all been taught is that you need to logic everything. And business has been about logic for forever. Just think it
yeah,
through, get a new strategy, come up with a different way, do more, do it better, push, grind, grit, resilience, all those sorts of things.
yeah,
What we know now is that the conscious mind, which is your logical mind, drives about 5% of what you do. Yet we have all been taught to spend 95% of our time in our conscious mind trying to logic our way through everything. What happens is the subconscious is where your emotions are held. That
right,
drives 95% of your actions. Yet we're taught to spend about 5% of our time paying any attention to those emotions whatsoever. So what's happened is that we've got the formula wrong. It's inverted. We need to spend the time in the emotions because the emotions are the single driver of every single result that we have. And over time, your emotions, your nervous system gets filled up with a lot of emotion. Think of it kind of like a bucket that you keep pouring
mm,
water into. And at some
mhm,
point, it happens to everyone. There is not one human being that does not have this happen. It's just a matter of when are you going to figure out it's happening and are you going to be, aware of it and do something. But the
mhm,
water fills the bucket and all of a sudden it's just overflowing. It is way too full. And so your nervous system will signal that it feels unsafe. And so it will go into fight, flight, or freeze mode. Everyone's familiar with that.
uh-huh,
And so that's usually when, especially a high performer, suddenly goes like, why am I not motivated to do the things I used to? Why do I not care anymore? Like, it doesn't seem like me. Or
mm,
why am I really having a problem making decisions? I've always been a super clear, fast decision maker, and now I can't make them. Why am I so incredibly stressed? My mind just will not shut off. Well, those are all symptoms that your nervous system is just, putting these signals out that go like, this doesn't feel safe. This doesn't feel safe. And so it will just stop everything. It will shut everything down. And that's where you start to do things like procrastination, not sleeping, etc. And it's easy to, release those emotions, but you first have to realize that that is the root cause of what's going on. And that is new for people to, kind of come into to understand that, and that it's not logic that's driving them.
wow, that's really interesting. And I've done work with with NLP and kind of conversations with folks about mindfulness, and they're talking about your subconscious mind. We've got these mental models and that sort of thing that are built into the way that we respond, or the way that we act, or the way that we interpret information.
Right.
But what you're saying is there's an emotional part of this as well that's more important, or is the bigger drive? How does all that work together?
Well, I would say it's more important because it's the number one thing driving your results. So if you want different results, you've got to go all the way back to the root cause, which is the emotional pattern that you have developed, that we each develop since we're little kids. And the thing about mindfulness is it sounds great, but mindfulness just makes you aware of the pattern or aware of a symptom or aware of an emotion. It doesn't dissolve the pattern. So
Right.
that's where mindfulness can, fall short. Then you've got mindset, which is a lot about reframing the situation or journaling or positive affirmations or to some
Hmm.
extent some meditation, and those are all great, but they're all talking to the logical mind. And the logical mind cannot fix an emotional pattern. It's like trying to use a hammer when you need a screwdriver. It's not going to work. No matter what you do, you're going to keep doing it and doing it. And it may give you a little bit of relief, but it's not going to fix the issue. So the only way to fix the issue, according to neuroscience nowadays, what we know now is to release the emotions. You release those negative emotions, it resets your entire nervous system. Now your nervous system is signaled safety And now all the things that you already know how to do, the strategy you have, the techniques and the behaviors and the discipline and the ambition, it all goes back online. You could kind
Mm.
of think of it like taking a virus out of a computer, and all
Hmm.
of a sudden, when that's gone, the computer is fine. It wasn't that the computer was the issue, it was that there was a virus in the software that has to be taken out for the software to go back online and start working the way that it should. And that's really what emotional release does. Once you reset that nervous system, everything goes back online. And so we see people with just, amazing results where they haven't slept, in 5 years. They're sleeping through the night in 2 weeks.
Oh,
We've got people who are losing a lot of weight without all of the drugs and those sorts of things. We've got people who are doubling their business in very short periods of time, who are now feeling present again with their family because their brain isn't going in a million directions. All sorts of, pretty amazing things happening. People just getting more clear and focused. They get to work less because the activities of doing actually are more effective because it's
mm,
not about grit anymore. I mean, that sort of idea that you just grit and grind it through, that's over. If you release the emotions, you realign your nervous system, now you're aligned with success and it's way easier and it makes business way more fun and not like I got to power through every day, get through the week. Oh my gosh, the grind. I
yeah.
don't know about you, but I don't want to work that way. That sounds terrible.
Oh, no,
I have
absolutely not.
a long time ago. It wasn't.
Yeah, I definitely don't like that. So how does this, and you may have answered this already, and I apologize if you did, but it sounds like what you're saying is that, we're doing the thing that we do, and then we reach a point of burnout. Essentially,
Yes.
is that the same thing, or is that akin to it?
No, burnout is definitely a symptom of that.
That's a
Yes,
symptom. Okay.
it's a symptom.
So how do we address this? I mean, this is something that I've never heard of. I'm sure a lot of people haven't heard of. I mean, what do we do?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll tell you a little bit about what we do. We have a four-step process that we take people through. But the reason why people haven't heard of it that much is that emotional release is kind of in the sort of time period that mindset was about 20 or 30 years ago, is when mindset first came on the scene. And when it first did, people went, "What is that? That doesn't make any sense. I'm not like what? Sounds
Mhm,
woo-woo, sounds weird." Well, then it caught on after a number of years. And then it became the thing that everybody was talking about mindset, get your mind in the right place, limiting decisions,
mhm,
etc. That's really where emotional release is right now. Emotional release is at the same point that mindset was 20 years ago, where people go, I don't really get it. It sounds kind of weird, like it makes sense because it is all neuroscience backed, but
mhm,
I don't really understand exactly. It sounds a little weird, but the people that are doing it, that are the early adopters, are seeing massive changes, and those people are just taking off like crazy and, leaving a lot of other people who are still trying to logic their way through everything, leaving
yeah,
them behind. So this is the new frontier of peak performance and, my uh, I guess, perception is that in the next 3 to 5 years, this is going to become very mainstream. People will look at it like, oh, yeah, I've done that. Oh, yeah, I know what that is. Right now, we're in that, precursor to that. So that's a lot of why people haven't heard of it before.
uh,
In terms of what you actually do about it, the first thing is you've got to understand and recognize what that core emotional pattern it is. There's usually a couple of emotions that are driving your what we would call your emotional blueprint. That
mhm,
all gets determined and decided going back in the ages of 1 to 7, 0 to 7 when you're a little kid,
yeah,
and, psychiatrists would call that, your imprint period. And so what's happening there is you're having all these different experiences as a little kid. You have no logic. That part of your brain is not developed under 7 years old. So when people say things to you, you think it's 100% true. So if someone says to you, Rick, you're really dumb, you just go, oh, okay, I guess I must be dumb. You don't go, that kid's being mean. That kid says that to everyone. Like there's no, logic for you to go, that's not true. You take it as true. Then you go home and your mom says, why can't you be like your brother? Not because she doesn't love you, but you just go, "Well, I must not be as good as my brother. I guess there's something wrong with me." And you
Mhm.
you find all of these different situations that will create a limiting belief, about yourself. There's usually one, and that becomes your blueprint for the rest of your life. And
Mhm.
those are things like, "I don't deserve it," "I'm not worthy," "I'm a fraud," or, I'm not good enough. Those are some of the four of the main patterns that people get. So we help people to figure out what is that pattern. And then we have one goal, and that goal is just to delete the pattern. So at a certain point, when people are working with us, about 4 weeks in, they can't remember what that belief is anymore.
Wow.
It's completely gone. How do you do that? We have protocols that can talk to the subconscious mind to allow people to pull the emotion out without reliving the experience. You never tell anything. You don't want to relive it because that just brings all those bad emotions up again. And that makes those triggers stronger. So you never want to go back and talk about what happened when you were 10 years old and you fell off your bike and everybody laughed and you felt
Yeah.
terrible. Um, and so you can do these sorts of things without reliving them or without going through any of that trauma, whether you've had big trauma or little trauma in your life.
Mhm.
Doesn't really. So
Mm.
you've got to figure out what the pattern is, then release it. When you do that, you can realign your nervous system. And now all the behaviors and habits that you did before just kind of get upgraded. And now they just seem like it makes perfect sense. Like, of course, this activity that I do to run my business, it just becomes easier. People really feel like they're in flow a lot more.
Mm. Mm. So if I understand correctly, it's not the activity that happened or whatever that happened, it's the emotion that we tied to that activity that reinforces the limiting belief. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely.
Wow. Wow. That's brilliant. That makes perfect sense.
Yes. And most
It's
of the
kind of
time,
like
carrying it around because for
Mhm.
most people, your conscious mind would say, well, why would I think that I don't deserve something? I am confident and strong and look at all
Right.
the things I've done. But what's happened is you put a ceiling on yourself and it's a ceiling that you don't even realize you've done. So you get to a certain point and a lot of people will find themselves kind of sliding back or things start to blow up a little bit or it just doesn't become as big as they really believed it could. And then, there's excuses. Well, it just must not be meant to be, or
Yeah.
I bad people, or the economy is bad. It's none of that stuff. It's just that you have this invisible cap that your nervous system access because it said if you get to this level for you, that is going to be your nervous system thinks of it like death. You're not going to be safe. Its job is to keep you safe. So if you get seen too much, if you get too successful, if you make too much money, whatever those twos are, your
Mhm.
nervous system will pull you back and go, nope, we're going to stop that. That's not going to happen.
You know what's scary about that is like you don't know. It's like you don't realize that you have this belief and you're just going through and you're like hitting wall after wall after wall after wall. I mean, what do you recommend? I mean, we've got founders that are out here and they're doing the thing and they're making their money, they're going out and hunting and fishing or whatever to make their money. They don't realize, we don't realize that we have these issues. I mean, how do we kind of get like a really good mirror and be able to say, hey, you know what? I actually do have a problem.
Well, I mean, the first thing is to understand that every single person on the planet, no matter who you are, has this because we've all got the imprint period. We all have that same psychology, and all of our emotions are in our nervous system. Those are things that, are not unique to anyone.
Uh-huh.
So that's the first important part is to not say, like, well, it's different for me. Now, some people have done some of the work and done the release, and so, they don't have those patterns anymore but
Yeah.
the thing you really wanna look for is the symptoms. If you find things like if you're not sleeping well and you're waking up all through the night and you've just got thoughts going all the time, if you find that you can never really rest, meaning You feel guilty if if you're not working or not doing something productive. Kind of that guilt starts to come in like, I better do something. Let me get my computer. I'm not allowed to just watch a movie or a TV show and just kind of chill for a little bit.
Yeah.
If you find that there are some triggers that you're responding to that you just go like, this doesn't really feel like me. You get frustrated easily. You get annoyed really easily. Watch your language. A lot of times people will say that annoyed me. That annoyed me. Those sorts of things. So you get frustrated, annoyed, angry. Sometimes you just like flip out for no
Mhm.
reason logically, and then you're kind of like, oh no, what did I just say? What did I just do? You procrastinate. You can't make decisions. You're just finding that a lot of people will come and say, "I think I've got ADD, ADHD. I'm just like I can't focus on anything."
Yeah.
They may or may not, right? But a lot of times when you can't focus on things, that's because that emotional pattern is just swirling in your body and it just needs to be released. So those are the things to look for to know if this is something that's going on with you right now. And then each individual needs to decide whether they want to deal with it or to work on it.
Yeah. What's interesting is like you have someone that's high performing, and they're able to get into their space and do their thing, and then they have those other symptoms.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's kind of hard to say, well, I'm just stressed because I got to do the thing, and wow, it's just so complicated. I mean, how do you really diagnose that? Is it we get to this point where just like, hey, you know what, Rochelle, we need to have a conversation, or is
High
there any self?
achievers just will say, like, I know there's something going on. I know that I'm stuck and I cannot figure out why. They start to think that maybe there's something wrong with them, which there
Mhm.
isn't. And they just are so tired of feeling like that that
Yeah.
they're looking for some sort of solution. That they're like, what can I do about this? Because this doesn't feel like me. I mean, we
Right.
had a business owner in his 40s who had started a company when he was in his 20s, built about a $60 million business, had a lot of family and everything working in it as well. And he came to us and he just said, I can't stand my business anymore. I cannot stand it. When I walk in the building that he owns, um, I just get this really bad feeling in my chest. It's tight.
Yeah.
I want to crawl on the floor to my office and shut the door so that nobody sees me and nobody talks to me. And he said, I don't know what to do because I feel like I'm either going to have to sell my business, which I don't logically want to do, but I cannot stand going in there and I don't know what's wrong.
Mhm.
And we worked with him for about 8 weeks, and he went back and loved his business again. He expanded into Mexico, he expanded into Latin America, and he was just like, I've been trying to do this for years. And it just kept being like this big, just hitting that brick wall. And, he just found us online. And so the work that we do is very quick. It doesn't take forever, and it you can feel the release and the relief right away. So the nice thing about working with emotions, it is when you release emotions, it's done, it's permanent, and you move on. You feel it right then and there.
Wow.
Is a thing that takes forever and ever and ever. I got to say that affirmation to myself, 800 times over 66 days, and maybe I'll believe it at some point. With emotional release, it's instant because your subconscious is your AI supercomputer. Your conscious mind is like one of those old fashioned calculators that,
Mm.
before we had iPhones, for those of us who remember back to that, we had little calculators that we had to carry around. That's what your logical mind is. That's what your conscious mind really is. And your
Wow.
subconscious is, you know, AI. Better than Chat GPT.
Wow, 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 wow. You said a number of times, and you may have responded to this already, but what do you mean when you say reset your nervous system?
So if we go back to knowing that our emotions are held in the cells of our body, and so they're held within our nervous system, when we go back and do certain protocols with people and help them to release an emotion, and we do that, it's all through a verbal wording that we take people through that might take
Hmm.
sometimes it's a 5-minute thing, sometimes it's, an hour-long thing. But once that emotion gets released, people feel it. They know when it's released, and that's what resets your nervous system. That's what
You
it so
said
people
emotion.
rewiring your brain, that's what people talk about when they talk a lot about mindset, like, "I'm gonna rewire the brain." What happens is we have these triggers, right, that somebody says something, somebody questions you, and that triggers you to go like, "Oh my gosh, they must think I'm stupid. Why are they questioning me?" Now, that person probably doesn't really mean that. They don't know that that's a trigger for you, but you get defensive. So that defensiveness that you feel, if you're doing emotional release, you can release the defensiveness so that now this separates. It no longer wires together anymore, and a
Mm,
new neural pathway will get created instead. So you have those triggers are gone. So we can
mm,
figure out, and people can figure out their own triggers as well. We all know when somebody says something that just bugs you, like it just you get upset, you get sad, you get annoyed, whatever that is. Those are usually signs that there's something that that person is saying that is triggering you in some way, which means it's some sort of belief about yourself that you think they're saying. They're probably not. Maybe they are, but a lot of times they're not. They're just asking a question, and you take it as like, this big offensive situation.
interesting. Interesting. You said emotions are held in our cells. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing is that Emory University did a study many years ago where they actually found that emotions are passed down 19 generations. So think about the fact that our hair color, eye color, height, etc. We have many, many things that are passed down to us from generations before us. Well,
Hmm.
what they discovered was that your emotions are one of those things too, because those your emotions are in the genes of your body as well.
Wow.
So you could have a very strong, anger that might have been passed down from, I don't know, 3 or 4 generations ago. And so that it's not really yours, right? Just like your eye color, your hair color, your skin color comes from the people before you, your emotions do too. And that was a really, really kind of mind-blowing study that it can pass back that many generations. And so that's why all those emotions are just held in the cells of our body and in the genes of our body.
Wow. So if I have anger or whatever emotions in my body, is that something that you're able to release with your process?
Absolutely, absolutely. So we go through and we release all of the negative emotions. So there's negative emotion that 5 big ones that just everybody has. We have anger, guilt, sadness, doubt, fear. Those are some of the big ones that every
Yeah.
human have. Now the question is, how much of each one do you have?
Uh-huh.
And so you can think of it like, when you're having an experience, think of, a filing cabinet in your nervous system, and you've got a file for anger and a file for fear and a file for doubt, etc. Within each one of those files, you have a layered cake. Now, anger might be a 5-layer cake for you, but guilt might be a 25-layer cake for you. And sadness might be, a 30 for you. So it's different for everybody. And so
Hmm.
what we do is we figure out, again, what is that root cause, that root belief that was created way back under 7 years old? What are the emotions that are attached to that? And then we can go in and start to, take that 25-layer cake and bring it down until there's nothing in there. Now, it doesn't mean that you will never feel angry again because you are
Hmm.
human, but what won't happen is you won't be triggered by things that logically don't make sense. You won't get angry really easily
Hmm.
or, sadness. I was watching a YouTube video a couple of days ago. It was a tour somebody was doing, and this woman had so much sadness in her. She's giving a tour of her own home, but every time she talks about family, she is literally crying in this video. over and over. It happened probably 4 different times over the course of an hour. What that would tell me is she's got sadness like up to here, that anytime that memory of family, grandparents, some idea around that triggers sadness for her, and she just can't even, control that. It just starts flowing. And if you
Yeah.
can imagine, I mean, that takes a toll. So all you have to do is remove all that sadness. It doesn't change the experience that you erase the experience you had. But if you have no emotion to it, no reaction to it, it just becomes, yeah, that was a difficult experience, but it doesn't affect me today. That happened so long ago. It doesn't
Yeah.
need to affect me in the now.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I've got a friend like that. She's when she goes to a church, like she just cries. She doesn't even know why. She can't go to
Yeah.
church. Poor thing.
Yeah.
Um,
There's something there. Yeah.
how long do people carry this? I mean, you said that we develop our memories over the first 7 years of our lives, but then that they evolve into limiting beliefs. Go out, we start the company, we start doing the thing, we're doing well, we build it to $60 million. Then all of a sudden, one day, the faucet turns off. I mean,
Right.
what is that?
Well, it's different for everybody how long you can, kind of just keep going regardless. We see
Yeah,
signs, and a lot of times in business, especially, we're taught to ignore them, right? Stress is just part of running a company. So, of course, you're going to be stressed. Don't worry about it. Just keep
right.
going. Fear is part of, just life in general. You're going to be fearful about things. So, just, we've been taught a lot to ignore the emotions, right? Do business on logic only and ignore the emotions. And that is a huge mistake based on what we know now. Now, before the 90s, yeah, nobody knew that emotions drove everything. So, of
Yeah,
course, we're going to go from a logical perspective. But now that we have this information, to ignore and repress the emotions, is not helping anyone, and it
yeah,
just makes it deeper and deeper. Again, it's like you're just how much water, how big is your bucket? It's different for everybody. And what is
yeah,
going to be that point at which your bucket is overflowing and you need the drain to be pulled out of it?
yeah,
And so it's really different for everyone. I mean, we work with people from in their 20s all the way up into 75, 80 years old because they just
wow,
go like, I'm tired of seemingly having everything great in life, and yet I'm just not happy. Like, why am
yeah.
I not happy? I've got the family and the business and the house and the great marriage and all these things, but every day I'm kind of like, meh. And so it could be fixed easily, that you don't have to live like that, because now we know what to do about it.
Wow, wow, wow. I just keep thinking like the weight, of the emotions just like gets so heavy. You know
It
what I
does.
mean? And it's like, you're like you said, I mean, it's you're just grinding every single day and you're just trying to you're trying to push through. It's just like, okay, is it 4 o'clock? Yeah, it's 5 o'clock. Yeah, it's 5 o'clock. I'm out the door. But you're saying that there's a solution. This is not normal. This is not the way that we have to operate.
Correct, correct. It is normal for it to happen to people, but it is not the way you have to live. It's not the way you have to operate. The sooner that you figure it out, the better, obviously, because imagine if you knew this and you could release these things in your 20s versus in your 40s, 50s, or 60s.
Yeah,
Imagine the ease that you could go through life and not have that ceiling set on you. And so
yeah.
even people who do really, really well, and they're like, well, the pressure is the thing that makes me me. What if it isn't? What if the pressure actually held you back? You did well in spite of the pressure, and you could have done 3 times better if you didn't have that sitting in your system. Not to mention the fact that we know that stress is the number one reason for disease. So carrying all of that with you for so long, that unfortunately creates a lot of health issues for people too.
Wow, so we gotta find out how people can get in touch with you. We've gotta fix this. This
I
this is not
agree.
sustainable. What do we need to do?
Well, people can find me. You can email me, Rochelle at emotionalbp.com. I've got a Substack. It's It's called Mindset Matters, and you can find that on Substack. You can find me on LinkedIn, just under my name. And then we also have our website, which is emotionalbp.com. So you can find me a lot of different places.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And the question I want to ask you. So, the name of the podcast obviously is the Relentless Pursuit of Winning, and the idea of winning. You identify by yourself. You figure out what winning means to you, and then part of that relentless pursuit is just making the necessary pivots to continue to move forward. What piece of advice would you offer an owner or a founder or an entrepreneur, whatever along those lines, so they can be successful?
Well, I think the big thing to remember, the big takeaway is that, you know, winners don't really need more grit, more resilience. What they need is a nervous system that is not pushing them backwards, a nervous system that will actually allow them to move forward. But I think one of the things that you can actually do is, and we teach our clients a lot, is when it comes to emotions, realize that you are in control of them,
Yeah,
that no one else can make you feel anything. And that's one of the things that we've been taught a lot in life. And we say all the time, you made me feel happy, sad, angry, mad, etc. What we
yeah,
need to realize is nobody can make you feel anything unless you decide to. So you
yeah.
don't have to take someone else can be angry. You don't have to accept that emotion as your own. And so when you start to really take the responsibility for your own emotions, that's another key part where you say, look, I'm feeling really scared right now, but is that the thing that is going to help me move forward? Or is there a different emotion that will help me do that? Because when I'm in fear, I can't focus, I'm not clear in my thinking, and I'm not a good problem solver. So feel the emotion. It's not about repressing it. Go ahead and feel it. Get it
Mhm,
through your body. The stronger you can feel it and kind of feel like you're pushing toothpaste out of a tube, out of your feet, get that emotion pushed through your body. And then you decide what is the emotion that I want to feel that will help me with this project, this task, this person, whatever it is that you're doing. And it doesn't always mean that you're gonna go from, let's say, fear to like, "Oh, joy and bliss. I'm gonna feel, amazingly well." But you might just go to acceptance or
mhm,
contentment or just peace, right?
mhm.
So you go to something, it's not about going from something super negative to something like massively positive, because a lot of times that's, there's problems with that when we're going that far up and down the scale. um, and the best way to get that feeling, whatever it is that you want, so pretend you want peace. Close your eyes. Think of a time when you felt incredibly peaceful.
Yeah,
Relive that time when you felt peaceful. And what will happen is your body will start to create all of that, you know, chemical cocktail in your body. You will feel peaceful. It can take you
mhm,
maybe 2 minutes to do that. And then you open your eyes and then you go on doing what you're supposed to be doing. And that's one
mhm,
of the best ways that you could just kind of that's about it's not releasing, but it's regulating your emotions. So you get to
mhm,
choose what you want to feel. And don't let anyone else make you feel anything. You've got to choose that and take the responsibility for that yourself.
I love that. I love that. What are your thoughts on, like, self-talk? Like, along the same lines. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I'm tired. It's like, "Okay, let's keep going. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think we have a tendency to focus a lot on what we don't want and not on what we do want. And so a
Right.
lot of self is I don't want to be late. I don't want to get sick. So rather when you find yourself saying that negative, think about what do I want? Focus on that. I want to be on time. Because when I'm focused on I want to be on time, that then makes me have different decisions before
Mhm,
I leave, before I go out the door. Maybe I don't make the bed. Maybe I don't make that last phone call because I want to be on time and I know that I'm going to need to leave earlier. So that would be one thing.
mhm.
Self talk is important, but remember the emotion comes before the self talk, before the
Right.
thought and the talk that you're doing in your head. And so it's always going to go back to emotion. So if I want to feel, if I say, hey, I don't want to be angry, I want to be happy. Okay, now I got to feel it. So again, close your eyes, take yourself to a time when you felt really, really happy. get it in your body, and then go do whatever it is that you need to do. So always
Yeah.
just think about it's always emotion first. And the more you can get into your emotions, don't relive the bad stuff because all that does is that makes that neural connection even stronger. But
Yeah.
relive the positive things to get it flowing in your body again. Because every time you relive any sort of experience, your body thinks it's happening right now. It doesn't
Yeah.
know that it happened 5 years ago, 10 minutes ago, 25 years ago. It thinks you are literally going through this right now. And
Oh,
so
interesting.
you can use positive experiences, to help you with that, and don't don't use the negative experiences. Those are not
Okay,
helpful.
that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. I was thinking, I guess, affirmational, like you have the anger, you have the fear, whatever, and then just kind of like saying out loud, some sort of affirmation. So you were saying like picture something, and I was wondering if there's a difference between, just like thinking about an experience and just giving yourself an affirmation that might, I don't know, help you think or help you see something differently. Is there a difference in those?
Yeah, the affirmation, the challenge with the affirmation is it sounds good, but your body doesn't believe it. So I
Uh,
can say I'm not afraid. If my body still feels fear, it knows there's fear. It knows that I'm lying to it. And we all know when we're lying to ourselves. Your body is going to scream and yell at you, and you just need to start listening to it. So if you're going to do affirmations, combine it with the emotion that fits the affirmation. And
mhm,
then that will make both your conscious mind, which is where the affirmation lands, the logic, and your
mhm,
subconscious mind, which is where the emotion lands. Now the two of them can work together. If I just do
mhm.
an affirmation, this logic is just floating out there by itself. And the subconscious emotion is like, that's not true. That's not right. What are you talking about? That's not true at all. I feel fear. Don't sit there and say, like, I can feel fear in my body. Are you crazy?
That's
So
funny.
they don't work together.
That's interesting. It sparked another question. So we are talking before about um, the different signs or the different uh, symptoms,
Huh?
of getting to this point where you're over. It sounds as though you're saying that we really need to listen to our body, not necessarily the pain or whatever, but is there something else like that our body is going to tell us that we're not necessarily going to process logically?
Yeah, I mean, it really just comes down to emotions. And the really interesting thing is that people have such a hard time really talking about emotions, number one, and figuring out what emotions are. We have a
Mm.
lot of time ask a client, how do you feel? And they're like, good. I said, good isn't an emotion. How do you feel? Things are going well. That's not an emotion either. That is a
Right.
logical explanation of a feeling. What do you feel? Do you feel happy? Do you feel peaceful? Do you feel sad? Like, what is the feeling? So you've got to be able to name it,
Yeah.
in order to be able to deal with it.
Yeah.
And that's a really important piece is that we need to, especially in business, get away from just everything has to be logical. Like those days are gone. That is not pushing people forward into getting better and better results. That is not where you're going to find peak performance is in logic.
Mm.
Strategy is not the thing that's holding people back. It's all the emotional wiring, the emotional pattern in their body. That is the number one thing holding them back. You could have amazing strategy and still not get the results you want. Why? Because your emotions are stopping you from taking the actions you need to take to execute the strategy. And so it's really that balance and the world will start to shift. We will see people talking about it. We already are a bit where people
Mhm.
talk about emotions a little bit more. It doesn't mean you're crying in business. It doesn't mean, that you're sitting around talking to your coworkers about how you feel. This isn't a feeling circle like they do in schools nowadays. You don't need to talk about it to your coworkers and other people. You just need to be aware of it yourself so that you could
Mhm.
do something about it and make the change. You get to choose whether you want to make the change. Do I want to keep the negative emotion Sometimes we do, by the way. Sometimes the anger feels good. Sometimes
Mm,
we're just used to it. We're used to feeling, doubtful or fearful. And our body has like this chemical addiction to a negative emotion that it feels again and again and again for years
yeah.
and years and years. And it'll try to pull you back there. Um, and so you've got to be really hyper aware and intentional about what you feel. And so what we tell our clients is check on your emotions once an hour. I've got a timer on my phone that says emotion check and it comes up every hour and my kids laugh at me and my husband laughs at me and everybody's like, wow, there's the timer again. But it's the thing that grounds me to go, how am I feeling? Because otherwise we're so into like, what am I doing? What are the
Hmm.
tasks I'm doing? What am I saying? What do I need to do next on my list? Well, none of that matters if the emotions are not in the right place to support the actions that I'm about to do. My actions will be more effective and I will get to do less of them. We
Mm.
find that when people do the emotional release, they work less and they get better results. And they're like, I thought I was going to have to work twice as much. I literally don't work, I work 3 days a week now, 4 days a week, and I'm getting better results than when I worked six. That's what can happen when the emotions are, really, you realize that that's what's running you and you really start to be intentional about it.
Wow. Wow. This has been so enlightening. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I love it. We're very passionate about it. And, I've been through all of this as well. I built a huge business. I completely burnt out on it. I didn't know what was going on because I've always been like achieve and do and discipline and all of that. And then
Hmm.
I went, why am I so burnt? Why do I not get what is going on? And
Hmm.
that's really what got me on, figuring all of this stuff out and being a product of the product where, I've done emotional release. It's not that I'm unique and I'm the only one that doesn't have it. I had it as well. And I saw the difference once I realized it, did the process, and then what happened afterwards in terms of our business and my life and all of those sorts of things. Um, and we've even done it with our daughters as well, which has been amazing. So our entire family has gone through this because why not start them early? Teenagers enough. Um, so we're products of the product, and that's what we believe so strongly.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, thank you again. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Folks, thank you so much for watching or listening to another episode of the Relentless Pursuit of Winning podcast. We'll catch you next time.